here we are on Camilla and I, 1 month on with the Sony 400 to 800 millimeter f6.3 to f8 lens. In this short video, I'm going to tell you what there is to love about the 400 to 800 millimeter and what there is to loathe about it too. Also, at the end of this video, I'll put up my best shots so far in the last month with the 400 to 800. And it's surprising on Camilla and I how much we've actually had the lens on in the last month. I mean, it's been an absolute beautiful summer here in the UK, absolutely idyllic. I mean, just about perfect conditions for the 400 to 800. A lot of beautiful sunshine. Well, I just had a buzzard across the valley, all the way over the other side, but with the 800 millimeter, I was able to get a little bit of video of the buzzard, and eventually it was mobbed by a couple of other birds, which I couldn't make out what they were. But anyway, see if you can see what they are. But yeah, lovely to get, and 800 millimeters, very useful. Anyway, a quick catch up on last week with the 400 to 800 millimeter. And last week we were at Arn in Dorset. We captured the Seeker deer, beautiful Seeker deer. I did about 4 sessions in the hide of about 2 hours each. I got some beautiful footage of the Seeker deer. Some of my best to date, I should think, from that hide. Absolutely superb. Got some lovely group shots, plenty of video, and also I got the cutest Seeker foal. Absolutely amazing. You may have seen the short. I did a short of it straight away because it was so cute, unbelievable. Anyway, if you have missed the Seeker deer short, 13 seconds, I'll put a link to it now. But amazing, or I'll play it now. Anyway, an amazing little Seeker foal, the cutest thing I've photographed in, well, definitely this year, but yeah, in probably the last couple of years. Anyway, that wasn't the main reason we were down in Arn in the Poole estuary. We were there for the osprey, which passed through there a couple of times, usually in early spring and early autumn. There's usually, they hunt, they will stop off in the Poole estuary for a while, and this was no exception. And we got some reasonable footage of a female who regularly hunts from a dead tree there. There's a dead tree that it parks itself in most of the time and defends its territory like mad. But this osprey also is an excellent fisher, and it went up and it circled round for about 5 minutes before it took a dive into the water and plucked out what must have been about a 3-pound bass or something like that. Amazing, an amazingly efficient hunter, apparently, this particular osprey. But when it came to the stills, unfortunately, atmospheric distortion got in the way. It didn't matter. We were at the full reach, the 800 millimeter of the 400 to 800, but there was nothing we could do. The bird hunted at about 10 o'clock. If it had hunted an hour earlier, there wouldn't have been the atmospheric distortion which completely destroyed this sequence of photos now, as it caught a fish and took off. There's just no way we could capture a reasonable image because of the atmosphere. Nothing to do with the lens, nothing wrong with the lens at all, but it just shows atmospheric distortion at its worst. Anyway, I think I'll just go on now to Lanford Lakes and record the rest of this video for you on the 400 to 800 and espouse more of the virtues of the lens and the disadvantages. So here we are at Lanford Lakes, and so what are the advantages of the Sony 400 to 800 millimeter lens? So the obvious first main advantage of the 400 to 800 is the 800mm reach at f8. This is a tremendous amount of reach in a relatively small package. Absolutely incredible. You can take it on holiday virtually anywhere with you, and that its compact size and its amazing reach is the first virtue I'd attribute to it straight off. But the next is the ability to pull back to 400mm. So you've got in this lens an absolute beautiful 400mm f6.3 lens as well, and that, particularly with videoing, I've found very useful to be able to get subjects more in the frame. Like the deer I photographed at Arn, I was able to pull back to 400mm and include more of the environment in the shot. So this has actually proved very useful. And indeed, 400 to 800 actually eliminates the focal length, eliminates the 400mm, the 600mm in one lens. This is the only Sony lens that goes from 400 obviously to 800, and that is a tremendous range, which makes this an absolutely beautiful birding lens, especially here in the UK where the birds are usually quite small in the frame. Also, the 400 to 800mm lacks none of the gizmos that other lenses has. It's got all the features, and it's also got direct manual focus, which again is very useful. You can override the autofocus system with a twist of the barrel if you've got it set to direct manual focus. Absolutely superb, a feature on more expensive lenses. So the next good advantage with this lens is value for money. At around £2,600 here in the UK, this is actually very good bang for your buck. The reach you get with this lens, I say, is beyond a 600mm. A 600mm lens f4 would set you back £12,000 here in the UK. This is a mere £2,600, which is £1,000 more than the 200 to 600, but I would suggest this lens over the 200 to 600. Sharper, certainly at 800, about the same at 600, I'd say, but essentially a very sharp lens. I've had no problem with the images out of this camera and lens combination. On Camilla and I, we are using the best combination going in the Sony lineup. We're using the A1 Mark II with this lens, so we have got a considerable advantage, and pairing it with this lens, I'd say it is a superb combination, which I've hardly had off the A1 Mark II in the last month, only for macro photography recently. Anyway, will this change? So we'll go on to now the disadvantages of owning this lens, and that is one of the disadvantages going forward is the f8 at the 800mm end. Now this is a bright light lens. Now the last month has been absolutely superb. We've had a glorious summer here in the UK. Doesn't really get much better than this. We've been blessed beyond our wildest dreams. It's been a marvellous summer, just about spot on. And f8 has not proved a problem over the last month. But going forward into autumn and winter, then we lose the light. And indeed, this is where the 600mm f4, half the f8 comes into play. It lets in much more light. This lens potentially will not let in as much light, and then we lose the autofocus on the subject, and we lose the sharpness and the detail on the images. So image quality is not a problem with this lens at all, but when you get to the lower light levels, we predict it will become a bit softer naturally, not being able to absorb enough light to the sensor. And the other big disadvantage of the 400 to 800 is the weight of the lens, coming in at 2.5 kilos. This is quite a hefty beast, and indeed we prefer it mounted on a tripod with a video head or a gimbal head. But if we're just walking around with the lens, I recommend thoroughly a monopod. Absolutely crucial to have a monopod with this combination. At 2.5 kilos plus camera body, we're looking at over 3 kilo package, and this is no lightweight lens. This is not, for me, a walk around lens. It may be for you. If it is, great, but for Camilla and I, we won't be walking around with this all day long. Kind of disease coming in. Yeah, get a couple of snaps, Canada geese coming in. But yeah, mounted on a tripod, absolutely superb, or indeed a monopod. We can, no problem at all with this lens. But it's not a walk around lens, it's a hide, it's a fixed position lens like this. You know, you don't want to be traipsing around all day long with this lens. Right, f8 is it's not bad. I mean, it's quite a good in the middle sort of f-stop, and it does give you a reasonable bokeh if you're in the right position, but obviously it's nothing compared to the f4 of the 600mm, or indeed the f5.6 of the 600 with the 1.4 times teleconverter. You've still got a better bokeh with that combination, but it's not bad. I mean, it really isn't bad. And if you can isolate your small bird or something like that, I mean, take for example the stone chat I got the other day, meters from it, absolutely close as can be. I mean, in fact, the 1.7 meter minimum focus distance comes into play, which is quite a good minimum focus as well. I mentioned that. Anyway, yeah, f8 is not a bad depth of field. It's not as good as the others, but it's not bad. You're often shooting at higher ISO levels. When the sun goes in, definitely your ISO level goes up, but that's not such a great problem these days with DxO, topaz, denoise, etc. You can get away with quite higher ISOs these days. In conclusion, is this lens for you? Well, if you're into your small birds and you're out in good light, then this is definitely the lens to go for you. I mean, it's a budget lens in a way, but it's got a lot of features on it, and certainly we have been using it on Camilla and I over the 600mm and 1.4 times teleconverter. And the reason we've been using it over this is because of the versatility, the ability to go from 400 to 800mm in the twist of a barrel is absolutely incredible. And if you've got the light, wow, you're in. It's great. A superb lens. The price, £2,600. I mean, per millimetre, it's an absolute bargain. Although it is £2,600. So even for a beginner, this would be a very good way to get in on your subject. But I would suggest it's for the intermediate in particular. And it's a fixed position lens. If you know one particular spot you want to photograph stuff, this could be the lens for you. And if you only go out in good light, this is definitely the good lens for you. As I say, in winter, Camilla and I will move on to the 600 with the 1.4 converter for 840mm of reach. But for the moment, we're sticking with this combination for those small, hard to get subjects. So really, it's a lens for beginner, intermediate and advanced in the right conditions. Amazing. So yeah, cannot recommend this lens enough. Anyway, just a quick one on Camilla and I, the 400 to 800mm 1 month on, and yes, we can't recommend it enough, particularly in good light and considering the price. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, have a good one. Bye from Camilla, the new 400 to 800, and I.